Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome
Welcome.
back, one and all. Thank you for sticking around.
Yeah, welcome back, us. Thank you all for
Welcome back,
chilling.
us. Thank you all for chilling. That is a much better way of describing it. Well, you don't have to be Jamie. You certainly can. For
Yeah,
for
we
example,
just.
I got myself 2 chocolate bars and a seltzer water. I now have a bad addiction to seltzer water.
I got a supposedly salted caramel hot chocolate bomb for Christmas that I am
Ooh,
consuming now.
your chocolatier days. Wow, I am impressed. Those must have been some good hot chocolates.
I love. My father makes fantastic hot chocolate. Were you were like making the chocolate, TD Pod? You really changed your your career life then, if I recall. Honestly, I'm kind of curious about that.
Addicted to water, suffering from hydration. Yeah, no, that's the story of my life, essentially.
You know, there you go. Ooh, what kind of food, Jamie?
Times.
Any specific ethnic food of some sort, or? I really love Japanese food. Not sushi
Oh,
though.
it's
I'm not a
so
big
good.
sushi fan.
I like cooked sushi. Cooked sushi is pretty good.
Hmm.
I
I'm just
will
not a big
occasionally
seafood person.
raw, but sometimes my stomach is not happy with me, even though my taste buds are.
I
So,
love
it's yeah,
miso.
do I appease the taste buds or do I appease the stomach?
Oh, Mars is my hot chocolate bomb, Johnum. That's the secret.
I'm sorry, what now?
That's delicious, Jamie. Honestly, agreed. I'm not a mint ice cream person, but the first part, delicious. The thinnest,
Mm.
we call them like haystack onions at some places. Those are the
Oh, they're
best.
so
Onion
good.
straws, haystack onions, shoestring onions, all of that sort of stuff. Delicious. Yeah, I'm not a peppermint person. I'm not a. The only kind of mint I like is winter mint, but that's like a specific, like a gum or Altoids thing. Otherwise, I'm like, not a mint, not a minty.
See, I do love mint. I love mint chocolate chip ice cream, especially like the true mint ice cream, like it's white, not green. That's when you know you have the good stuff. Peppermint patties, always, oh,
No, Jamie,
delicious.
don't leave because of me. Look, Mars likes peppermint enough for both of us. There you go.
Yeah, it's okay. I
It
love
balances
peppermint.
out.
It's so good. My family makes fun of me though, because they're like, it tastes like toothpaste. Why would you want to eat toothpaste? I'm like, no, it's good. It's like it's fresh, it's cooling. You drink water right after, it tastes even colder. Like, what's not to love?
I also love winter green TD, which is its own plant that you can find in the Appalachians. No, I'm sorry, the Adirondacks. Mixed that up, my bad. The Adirondacks. And I went to school there for a bit. Oh, thank you for the follow, your goat.
Oh, thank
You're the
you.
goat for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wintergreen is an actual plant. It's a small herbaceous plant that grows very close to the forest ground, but you can pick it and you can make it into tea. And it's very delicious. It's very shiny. It grows all year round. Oh, well, not all year round, but a lot of the year. It's very shiny. It's very waxy, but you can brew it into tea, and you feel like a real mountain man, and it
Wow.
tastes good because I gotta. Okay,
Oh, I want that
have you
experience.
ever heard the story of? Yeah, no, not at all. It's a real plant. It's a real plant. Have you heard the story of the arborvitae?
I can't say I have. Anyone in chat?
I'm curious. I feel like TD Pod might have. The arbor vitae, the tree of life. One of the many false hyphenated cedars. I don't
I
know any
think that's
common name other than arborvitae, so.
I think that's a no, Ori. Yeah, you
All
might
right.
as well explain.
Well, it's called arborvitae, and arborvitae is Latin for tree of life. And the reason that it's called that is because when a bunch of sailors first came to the Americas, to North America, they were incredibly incredibly scurvy ridden. And now for scurvy, you need vitamin C. And what has a lot of vitamin C? Evergreen trees. Evergreen trees have a lot of vitamin C. So they saw the evergreen tree, which is now called arborvitae, and they made tea from it, and they drank it, and they lived, and they got rid of their scurvy. Now, while this is true, and you can actually get rid of your scurvy, don't drink arborvitae tea. It tastes horrible, terrible, the worst possible thing.
Tori has been scarred
Disgusting.
for life. It sounds.
Yeah,
All right.
spruce tips
How did you
can be
end
good.
up drinking it? How'd you
Spruce
end up
tips.
drinking it?
Well, you go to hippie lumberjack school, and then you stay at hippie lumberjack school camp, and you eat a lot of things because the professors go out and cook for you from scavenging, foraging, essentially.
Oh man. And you were completely unawares. You were just like, ooh, tea, this is gonna taste great.
Yep, it's bad. I mean, Oh yeah, no. So Jamie, a part of my schooling, the specific college that I went to, SUNY ESF, owns multiple hundreds of acres within the Adirondack Mountains as conservation property. And one of these places is a place called Cranberry Lake, which is a conservation station. And yeah, I literally went to tree school.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's actually the largest SUNY school by land owned, because they own land in Costa Rica, they own land in the Adirondacks, and a bunch of other places that are all preservations and reserves. So they own the most land, but as a school campus, it's very, very small. But as part of the schooling of the major that I took, you had to go to literally college sleepaway camp for about 5 weeks, where you went all the way up into the Adirondacks. You then took a boat to, it's not an island, but it's effectively an island. You have to hike very far to get back to civilization. The boat is the best way. And yeah, you stay there for 5 weeks. And in those 5 weeks, you essentially live with, I think when I went to this college, the total amount of students was in the 500, 600s. It was under 1,000. They've grown since then, but that was a very recent thing. And but yeah, so we went to this sleepaway camp, and because all the professors are literally hippies or lumberjacks themselves, they like to go out and forage themselves. And one of them is specifically Indigenous People Studies. That was a elective you could take that some people took. And so you get to make a wigwam, and you get to make cattail bracelets and harvest cattails, and that's how I learned about the wintergreen. And I didn't even take that class. I didn't even take that course. I took a different elective, but an elective we had a lot of time off from that elective, and so I literally just hung out with this other elective, so I got to do that without having to get any grades or anything or do any work. And those are fun too, though. TD, any geology related or archaeology or paleontology related stuff is wild. God, geology professors,
they can be rare to
go
find
ham.
too.
I don't know what to tell you. We dug for fossils behind a Kinney Drugs at my college, because that was where you could dig for fossils, behind a Kinney Drugs. And then essentially, Mars, we literally, I'm not joking. Do you remember the Museum of Silt in Randy Cunningham?
Yes.
If that museum was based off a real place, I went there in college. It looked
God.
exactly the same. It's this little tiny dinky thing, just off the side of the thing, and it's this really tiny
totally
thing.
Believe
and
it.
it's really small. It's great. I have one of my favorite plushies from there. I have a placoderm plushie, which is honestly epic as hell because of how many people can say.
Have I ever seen it?
Probably, but I could show it to you. How many people can say they have a placoderm plushie? Not many. Not many.
Not very many at all.
But
that is wild.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that these okay, I'll get it in a second. I'll leave Mars to talk while I get it. But yeah. So essentially, the professors were just as nature nerds as you could possibly come, and so they would go out and they would walk the trails and they would come back with mushrooms and everything, and they would just cook it to have everybody try it, and that was the whole thing. So yeah, That was it. I'll get the plushie picture and post it in the Discord. Mars,
Oh,
you can
what a
start
wild story.
talking about visual versus written media.
Yes. Oh, and what a topic we have tonight, because this not only includes the writing element, this includes the artistic element as well. So both Ori and I can weigh in on this topic. But initially, just to set the scene a little bit, Ori and I were having our business meeting yesterday, and we actually got to work a little bit on a script for a brand new episode. And we were deciding, okay, so we know what's happening in this scene. We have the meat of the scene essentially. Now we just need all the connecting tissue. What's the dialogue? What are the panels going to look like? How are the characters going to be acting? What are their expressions going to look like? All that good stuff. And at one point, I'm going to try to keep this vague, but it is a little bit of foreshadowing. We were talking about the clothes that the characters were wearing in the particular scene. So some people are going to not have a lot of clothes on while working, like tank tops and stuff. They're not going to have
You
their
make it
usual
sound
layers
so naughty.
I'm not trying to! This is the struggle, guys. This is the struggle. I can't even explain without being accused. Nah, I kid. I do it to Ori all the time. It's fair that she take a shot at me. But, essentially, without giving too much away, the crux of our discussion was, okay, so some people aren't going to have their layers on because, they're on an island and they're excuse me. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Lay off the seltzer for a bit. Ow. That hurt my throat. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So yes, little layers because it's hot. They're working on an island. Meanwhile, some other people, they're gonna keep their layers on. And we want the audience to recognize this. And depending on the panel layout, like it'll be it definitely won't be hard to miss. Like a person reading will clearly be able to see that Ferrix is just like in his typical tank top and shorts, and someone else, didn't take off all their layers and is probably sweating buckets for what they would probably see as stupid reasons. Because like, hey man, it's hot. Why do you still have all your layers on? Why are you insisting that you melt into a puddle? But what was interesting, and Ori and I do a lot of vibing as I'm writing the script. So I'll be like typing it out. What came across my mind, and I mentioned this to her, was that if this was being written as like a light novel or a book, it would be a very different type of foreshadowing. Because if I want to draw, I will try, Jamie, I will try. If I want to draw attention to the fact that Ferrix is in a tank top and someone's wearing a jacket, I have to actually acknowledge in text. So I would have to say something about, what was the example I gave Ori yesterday? Something along the lines of, like, Ferrix stood there in his tank top that accumulated more dirt the harder he worked, or something along those lines. It would be a line that draws attention to it. Whereas then you'd have another line talking about he wiped the sweat from his brow as he tugged on his sleeves nervously. Now that's drawn attention to the fact that this character is still wearing their coat. So in writing, it's almost an instinctual skill that we have. Whether that be from how we interpret the world around us or what we've been taught via our reading classes, we basically read into things or we interpret them. So if an author is writing about something very specific, you're probably going to file that away as important. Whereas with a comic, that's a visual medium. So you're not really drawing attention to it unless you do some like maybe a close-up in one panel, or you focus on the detail in a very obvious way. But for the most part, especially with Webtoon, with their scrolling, their infinite scroll method, some people might pass that foreshadowing right by and not even notice it. So with that distinction in mind, the difference between writing foreshadowing and drawing foreshadowing, Ori, are you back?
Mm-hmm.
I heard
Sorry
movement
that took
in
so
the
long. I
background.
literally could not find my phone.
No,
My bad.
I was on a roll. I was on a roll. But I did want to ask you, as the artist, whenever we have a detail that we want to draw attention to, whether that be for character purposes or foreshadowing, like I've been talking about, how do you do that? Do you find yourself doing the panels differently? Do you purposefully try to make it so the camera is focusing on this particular detail? Or do you kind of let it sit in the background almost, or keep the shot, you know, regular as expected? Like the detail is still there, it's just not being explicitly pointed to. How do you do that?
So it definitely depends on specifically what the detail is and how much attention we really want to draw to it, right? If it's something that is very important, where like if the readers miss it, they're going to be confused later, or if it's, just like a very, oh, this is how they got the orb that they will pull out later, Vox Machina style or whatever, not Vox Machina, Deus Ex Machina style.
There you go. I was like, I don't remember that scene.
No. Deus Ex Machina style, and then, if people didn't see that, so a good example would be like Oz Tagore, right? Dylan's character in our last Dungeons & Dragons campaign had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Now, a lot of his stuff going on behind the scenes was important to the plot, right? So if a reader looking in, it was important for the reader to know what he was doing with the letters and sending the letters and everything. So something like that is important as to why Avalon the Bard shows up later on, all this sort of stuff would be specifically in either two things. You would either have small, very zoomed in panels, right? You can see sometimes I'll do panels where it's like zoomed in on Milano grabbing Hotson's wrist, or like the feet stepping up, like this is focusing on the part that we want you to see, right? So if it's like, okay, Oz pickpockets the envelope from Calazar's backpack, that would be like a zoom in of his hand holding the letter, pulling it out of his backpack, right? So you have to see that, right? You are scrolling through, that is a panel. The other way to do that is a large panel, is the full, so you've seen the ones where it's like it's not really in a paneled sort of box, it goes like side to side, and then it sort of blends in top to bottom. That also is like an emphasis panel, because when you're infinite scrolling, that's going to take up the entire phone, right? So that's like okay, I'm going to look at this. So that can also be one that is like drawing attention to something very specific, right? So having a moment where it is full-on Ostrogor pulling the letter out of Calazar's backpack while he's looking and talking to somebody else, that could be like a full panel as well, right? Depending on how the pacing is going with that sort of section.
Oh, I
so
see.
Those are the ways that
Okay.
you would have like blatant drawing attention to it. But the benefit of a visual medium like a comic is indeed that you don't have to have it be blatant, right? You were talking about how in written, the fact that you write it down keys off the reader that this is important somehow, right?
Well, otherwise it wouldn't be there at all.
Well, exactly. This is that classic,
That problem is
internet
that
example.
in writing, you have to say what you mean. I mean, you can bury it in metaphor and allegory if you want to, but at the end of the day, you gotta say what you want the reader to pay attention to. Whereas with a comic, like, if we're talking about, let's say, the code again, we could either have a very close-up shot of it to really draw emphasis, or we could just keep it at a typical medium shot and show the character just doing their thing. The detail, it's still there. It's just a matter of presentation.
Yeah, so the idea would be sort of like a very classic example of the writing conundrum is where like there's that internet reference all the time where it's like, oh, the curtains, the blue curtains mean his like melancholy, feelings about life or whatever, and then it's like the writer's just like the curtains were just blue, like it wasn't supposed to be anything crazy. But that's the pitfall you fall into, right? And dungeon masters can fall into this as well. Describing something in detail when describing a room is going to automatically draw the player's attention to that thing. However, if you were just like, I just wanted them to have like an ornate, pretty throne, like it wasn't anything crazy, just the fact that you have described it more than anything else in the room is keying them off. Now, the reverse is that in a visual medium like a comic where you have the dialogue and you have the backgrounds and everything, is you can hide stuff in the background, right? Even animation, right? I mean, think about Gravity Falls and all of the stuff that they hid in the background. Hey, Cinder, what's up? Hope dinner was nice. Cinder. The amount of things that you can hide in the background, like that you can see going back now and looking at it, right? You can see all this stuff sort of like come into play, all these little things and little stuff that you, when you're looking for them, you can find them because they're there, but they're kind of like Easter eggs. Yep, no, exactly, Sweetie Pie. But so there's a lot of sort of small things. Welcome to the VC, Cinder.
Hello, Cinder.
There's a lot of small little things that you can just put in the background because they're not important in the sense of it being like, if you miss them, you're going to be like completely left out of the loop. But if you catch them, that's where those like internet theorists, people come in, right? Like that's the cool stuff when you think of the people and like, Matt Pat and all those other people doing like crazy backwards handstands and all this, like, whatever.
Everyone paying attention to those small details and using them to build that bigger story.
So I, as a person, would not pick up on the things that I want to put in the comic.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Hey,
good.
Going
How was
well.
Dinner?
How about you?
Oh, I ate too much.
What'd you have?
So my brother and I have the tradition now. We've done it 3 years in a row, so I think that means it's tradition. Where we go to a Brazilian steakhouse once a year.
Oh, those are good.
So I ate a lot of meat, and normally we go for lunch, which is lovely. But this time we went for dinner, and the main difference at the place we went going for dinner is that in addition to the regular Brazilian steakhouse thing, they were walking around with this fried cheese that was like dipped in honey.
Oh.
And it was so
feta?
friggin' good. No, feta. It wasn't feta. It was like I don't know what kind of cheese it was, but oh my god.
Sounds delicious.
So good.
It sounds amazing.
So I ate way too much cheese.
Yeah.
Like
that's the vibe.
I finished eating and I was like, I'm full. And then after that full, I had like a lot more cheese. So.
Honestly.
I just rolled home. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna hang.
Nah.
But I wanted to say hi and say hi.
Hey,
well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself though.
How was the game?
It was good. We had some funny ones.
Very good. We had some talented artists.
What's up, John M_47? You wonderful champion of the universe, you. You sensual Tyrannosaurus.
Oh, I should do it this way.
Okay.
To hide everything.
Have to see what sensual Tyrannosaurus is.
it's the chicken, the all-consuming chicken.
What is
that's right.
It's also just a Tyrannosaurus that's kind of sensual.
I mean,
it's
it
just
is pretty
a big chicken.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the secret. That's the ticket.
Oh my god.
But you just caught us. We were in the middle of talking about the difference between detail writing depending on what medium you're using.
Yeah, written versus visual.
The written angle, and Ori's explaining the visual angle.
Okay.
Do you have any input on that, Cinder? Because you've been a DM as well.
Are you talking about? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Are you talking about descriptions when running Dungeons and Dragons
So
specifically.
we're mostly talking about the idea of that, how when sort of mostly with like foreshadowing or putting in little details in the background, like hiding things, you know,
Like
but
Mhm.
stuff
foreshadowing,
you want people to pay attention
that it can
to.
be very difficult to have in sort of a written or verbal medium, right, where there's no visuals at all, have anything sort of subtle, right? The moment
Yeah.
that you draw attention by deciding to write it down or say it out loud, you have drawn attention to it, right?
Exactly.
The way that I
And
would go
it
about
can be difficult to make it organic as well.
Yeah,
That's
I
why you usually have metaphors or
well, I feel like
very
that's one of the best ways to do foreshadowing is in the in the metaphors and similes you choose to use in your descriptive language. Like for example, I wrote a story a while ago about a guy on a train, and he had a way of sort of visualizing things in this direction of like the grotesque. So he described everything in this very visceral, kind of gross way when he was describing things.
Mm.
But the plot of the story was very normal. But it evolved into a story of like grotesque monsters and things. But it was more foreshadowed in like the specific metaphors and language of the narrator than it was in anything else. But like, so it was sort of just weaved in there. You know what I mean?
I see.
Like if I'm gonna
So
have a
that
story
that sounds like it ended up very organic to me.
yeah, but that was a very intentional choice that I made.
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted it to be a story that started in the real and ended in the magical real, and I really actively had the narrator, who was the main character, sort of, even while the story was very grounded, they were sort of looking at things from that magical perspective before the story got there. And I feel like you can do that in a lot of different ways. Like if you're describing a city and you're using lots of, you're describing it, if you use language that is tied to things that sound organic and sort of alive, then that gives that city a very different tone than if you talk about it in terms of like industry or architecture or more mechanical things, So if you're,
Mm.
I think that the tone of your metaphor, specifically for written stuff, excuse me, is the move. With D&D, I feel like it's a little bit of that, but also with D&D, I feel like you have to hit people over the head with something to foreshadow it well enough a lot of the time, so it almost
To be
doesn't feel
fair,
like
in a
foreshadowing.
D&D campaign, there is a lot going on and a lot to pay attention to
Yeah,
because you have the overarching story and then you have kind of like the story for that session as well.
yeah.
I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
I think
I
it
always
really
feel
matters
like
what kind of campaign you're playing, because
Yeah.
like a good example, Mars, is the first campaign I ever played in seriously, was about us being mercenaries. So kind of the whole point was that there wasn't really overarching shenanigans going on that much. It was all pretty like bottled, confined. Succinct.
episodic.
Yeah, episodic. Versus like mine was specifically like there's stuff going on in the background. Ooh, how do you know? That sort of thing. Dylan's too, right? The Watery Grave too was all very much like, what's the bigger picture? So it is definitely like a lot can be going on because the difference is that when you're actually role playing in something, you have to be present. Right. Versus in like, you can watch Gravity Falls and not be in the theory zone, like you can do that. Versus when you're playing it, it's kind of like
Well, one
detriment
definitely
to you.
demands that you pay attention because you're taking an active part in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to give the clue like 6 times in 6 different ways a lot of the time. But it doesn't really matter because if you do, players think it's cool. Because, like you said, there's just so much going on. Too much going on. Guys, we had such a fucking hectic D&D game today. Oh my god.
Oh, really?
It was cool. Yeah, we're at the point in Rally where we're at like the climax of this arc, and
Oh man.
my character has become very central to a lot of this arc in particular, and it's hectic,
Wow.
but it's good. It's hectic, but I'm pretty sure my character is gonna go through some like fairly dramatic changes from these events, which I think will be cool. But I think
They usually do.
yeah, it's gonna be the kind of thing where like also the character that I play, Mars. I don't know if you listen to Rally, but I play a big robot named Guard, who is sort of
Yes.
like a Breath of the Wild style golem looking creature.
Oh, he is phenomenal.
Yeah, so
She's at very
I
least
really,
seen the art.
yeah.
I've seen the art, and I think I've listened up to episode 5 last I left off.
Word. Well, no rush. If you want to listen to it, feel free, but no pressure. But
That's not how you sell it, Cinder.
I'm not trying to celebrate. I'm just trying to hang out with my friends. But what was I gonna say? Oh, there's going to be there in this session there was, and based on conversations in the session after session will further be dramatical physical changes to the character. Like he is changed, and he's going to become more changed, and I'm excited for it.
The plot thickens.
The plot indeed does thickens.
Oh, it's so much fun. I'm gonna kill so many things. I can't wait.
I don't know if that character growth. I don't know.
It kind of is.
Okay.
The way
Is
that we are gonna be. So
I
so
see.
to get very meta, the way that my character, I think their like growth arc over this arc is that they are sort of coming to terms with realizing that they have tried to be this like protector character in a very reactive way, sort of literally like a guard, and that they are taking steps and making promises and literally changing their body a little bit, so that they can start being more active in the process, less reactive towards things and more active towards things. So a little bit more offensive. So killing things more essentially, but in more with more direction, and a little bit more heart behind it, ideally.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
It'll be
some pretty cool growth.
We'll see.
I look forward to hearing it. Guard just becomes Cinder.
Yeah, we're talking in chat that Guard just becomes Cinder because Johnum said that he becomes hairy and orange, and then TD replied with him being pink, and then
I
there
see.
you go.
I didn't even
I was about to
understand
say,
him.
Harry and Orange just sounds like the Lorax.
Yeah,
Hey man,
I mean,
there's worse company to keep. You know what I mean?
I think that's definitely what Johnum was going for, the Lorax.
No, I think I'm gonna be stepping away from the trees and more towards
Murder.
murder.
There you go. That's the true ticket, huh?
Absolutely.
Just guard is about to fight a big dude. Oh, dude, that fight is fucking awesome. So I won't spoilers anything, but that whole saga of guard wrestling Big Paul, and that whole you'll enjoy that. The way that I play guard.
Oh, that was phenomenal.
Is he's like totally amoral. So he basically follows the rules that are set forth to him, but doesn't have any context for them. So like if somebody asks him to do something, he will do that thing, but maybe you know what he's like? He's like the fucking broom getting the buckets of water in Fantasia. That's what he's like.
I see him as like almost Hal to a degree, because like he finds a way to like carry out the mission even though it's not like the most humane way, but it's the way that works. That
was my goal with him. My goal with him is he is very direct in ways that are sometimes helpful and sometimes not helpful. He's grown a bit. He's starting to have a sense of identity. He ends up being one of the more philosophical characters because he asks a lot of big questions in ways that he doesn't realize are big questions to ask. I'm curious if you enjoy it, TD. I appreciate that you're listening. It's a fun show to put on. There, that's me selling it. Did I do a good job?
There you go. Yeah,
you
definitely.
did brilliantly.
Fantastic. Fantasia. There we go. Bringing it around town.
Yes.
Fucking nerds.
Oh, always.
What would we be if not nerds?
Would you guys ever have interest in? This is purely hypothetical, but I'm curious. Would you guys ever have interest in playing a RPG, tabletop RPG style game that was designed around being super powered people, like either like mutants and masterminds or masks or something like that, where it's a system that is designed for that style of game of like superpowers, or not really?
Ooh.
Personally, I'm like fantasy only. If I'm
Yeah, no,
being honest.
that is my question. I want to know. I'm asking taste wise.
Yeah, I'm like fantasy only. The only reason we went over to Pathfinder was specifically it was like it has to be fantasy. Like that. I don't want space fantasy. I don't want mechs. I want classic, as fantastical as possible.
Yeah.
So-
I'll be honest. I can vibe with just about anything, and I'll at least try something once.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we did Lancer, and well, not my favorite. It was still an interesting experience.
I think it'll always be fun, with the people that you're vibing with. I don't think you can have a bad time, but I definitely know that I'm in it for the magic fantasy.
Yeah,
vibes.
you want your fantasy characters.
I've never played a superhero.
You're telling me you don't want to
system
live
game.
out My Hero Academia?
Definitely not specifically My Hero Academia. Jesus, do you know what happens in that? Holy,
No,
I know.
apparently
Don't
I
spoil it.
don't.
Spoil it.
God.
What's going down?
I don't know
Where
what's
I'm
going
at,
down
it's
right
still
now.
pretty chill.
I'm not on top of it. It's like it gets ham way too fast, and then everybody just
Really?
has trauma.
Oh,
Where
wow.
are you in the series, Mars?
I like
I
the
watched
bad
season
guy.
1 and I got bored.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
no. End of season 3 is like, yep, and everybody is traumatized forever and ever and ever, and everybody's dying, and oh god.
Mars, I feel
ah.
like we got similar distances, and probably I feel like I got bored too. I really did like the look. I liked the look of some of it. I really liked the villain
I
whose
like the
body is
look.
covered in hands that are holding him. Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm talking about?
Shigaraki.
Yeah,
Shigaraki.
those
That
are
guy,
cool.
that guy had such a cool design to him.
I like
Nuts.
the ideas of quirks because it was essentially like you could have basically whatever superpower you freaking wanted.
Yeah. Did you ever
Like-
see Darker Than Black?
No.
I did not know.
So Darker Than Black is a show that reminds me of My Hero in that way. It's a little bit less colorful. It is, I mean, it's called Darker Than Black, but it's a little bit more like noir, like people in a city. It feels like in the real world a little bit more. But the whole shtick of it is that there are people that essentially have weird superpowers. And in order to use the powers, there's like a thing you have to do to use it, and it's totally random. So for example, there's a guy whose power is that he can hold his hands as if he's holding objects and create essentially force versions of those objects. So he could like act like he's holding a whip and hit you with like a imaginary magic
like
whip.
miming and all this sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
And-
interesting.
And in order to use his powers, he needs to dog ear fold every page of a book. And if he dog ear folds every page of a book, then he can use his powers. And he can't use them again until he
Oh.
does it again. So he just carries books with him everywhere that he goes. But
Oh, that's
there are all
weird.
sorts of weird things. There's one guy that has to build geometric patterns on the ground. So he'll like keep like salt or pebbles with him.
Mhm.
And it's super fucking
That's definitely
weird, but
fun.
it's cool.
Yeah, that's definitely
Cool.
fun.
And
Like
the
idea
powers
that-
are not crazy. Like one of the craziest powers is this girl that can look into a body of water and see out of a different body of water of her choice. That's
Okay,
like one of the more
scrying.
powerful
Okay.
powers. Yeah.
Yeah, scrying pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Good vibe.
See, TD Pod's a general man, going for all of the vibes.
I like sci-fi.
TD
I
Pod,
like
you
the
got a
sci-fi
good
side.
repertoire.
Repertoire. I hardly know it.
And I will say, 90% of my preference is based on my art preference. I will
Mhm.
admit. So
Or he wants to draw her characters.
if I can't yeah,
and
exactly.
items.
I would
That's,
say, and I'm not trying to put you in a box here because you are your own artist. But if you were somebody that was interested in superhero stuff, you draw in such a colorful, vibrant way that it would lend itself so well to superhero costumes. I'm not saying that matters, but it is something that is worth noting. Like, you make very colorful art.
I
It is
definitely like
hard
the
to ignore.
colors. No, so
Yeah.
I definitely like superhero. You know, I enjoy superheroes. I consume superhero media, but as like a thing, I'm definitely
I
not
thought
like.
you were about to say I consume superheroes.
I thought you were
Yes.
gonna say that too, and I was like, "Whoa, don't tell
Well, I
Dylan."
do love
Glad I wasn't
tattoos.
the only one thinking that.
TD
Yeah.
tattoo magic stuff is definitely awesome stuff. But yeah, it's definitely like I have a very specific art desires, and it all sort of ends up in very easily like mythology fantasy vibes, and it's just like, yeah, I'm happy here.
It's like I'm
This
I'm
is where I want to
comfy,
be.
I'm home. This is nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, somewhere from like fairy tale through mythology, fantasy. That's the realm.
It's a
It's a good
balance.
realm.
What are these superheroes, Johnum? I don't know. I want, I mean, animal legs. You can't go wrong.
There are some really cool fantasy themed superheroes. John Constantine is kind of fantasy themed. There's medieval Batman.
Medieval Batman. I will say it definitely is a beautiful art like experience when you see people draw superheroes like medieval fantasy style, where they're like knights and stuff. That's always
Oh,
wild.
it's so
Hellboy.
good.
Hellboy's kind of its own style, though. What's his name? Mike Magnolia, or the artist, or whatever his name is. It's just
It's
specific stuff.
it's funny. I just talked with Mars where next week on Thursday we're going to do a D&D official race aesthetic tier list. And I feel like we're gonna have some hot takes. That's all I'm gonna
Oh, big time. We're really setting ourselves up to be yelled at.
say. I mean, there's
With that one.
there's specific right options. That's all I'm gonna say. Unfortunately, Tiefling
I know
doesn't
it,
count.
but it doesn't Tiefling, because I was
Yeah,
gonna say
because
that. I know
we're-
that that's your favorite.
We're doing official descriptions, right?
Yeah,
And
not
so
all our
Tieflings are
Oh, I
sad
see.
official
that has made
description
things
wise.
better.
I see.
You know, it's one
you
of those
think that's
things.
the right answer.
Yeah, and it's
Is it the Azamar?
oh no, definitely not.
Is it one of the elves?
No. Ugh.
don't know,
Absolutely
boring.
not.
Is it because it's so who is it? The Genasi.
Genasi are pretty cool. They're definitely up there. But they're
Yes,
not
I'm
the
not
right
hitting
answer.
the button though.
They're not the right
Should I be
answer.
going? Should I be going in the furry direction?
Yeah,
or away
oh,
from the
100%.
furry
Have you
Probably.
seen what I draw,
Okay,
Cinder? Like,
I'm
excuse
just
me.
asking. I'm just asking. So you got the Harangon. You
Those
got
are
the
great.
Shifter.
The shifters are my favorite. If I
That's the
have to
one?
go
The shifter?
specific, because you can by official listing make them exactly what I want, and
Mhm.
so satyrs are probably close second because they're the other like thing. Same with centaurs; they're pretty up there. Those are the vibes.
What about you, Mara?
Those-
Do you have favorites? Are you also into the animal people?
I mean, I definitely think the animal people
If-
are very cool.
if
Very
Mars
awesome.
wasn't into the animal people, I don't know how we would be making this comic together. I feel like we would have an
That-
issue.
That is a fair point. Yes,
Yeah,
there are
that's
so
fair.
many animal people in our
They're like
comic.
almost all
And it is
animal people.
literally the crux of our comic. It is the allegory, it is the metaphor, it is the plot, it is the reason for
Which is
being.
the reason. You making a boat?
I am making a boat. I am.
Oh shit!
This is going to be our trailer, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Are-
it is.
how-
It is.
So how long? Okay, because I haven't read any of your comic books so far, and it's not out yet. So I
Like,
don't
no,
It's not
no
out yet,
one
so
has.
you're not behind,
Except
so-
us.
I know. I'm just expressing. I'm going through the thought process. I was just making sure that me saying that didn't like reveal that I was less of a friend. Is there a boat that is their boat for a prolonged period of time?
There
oh, yes.
is. Yes.
So
They
how
have a
much
boat.
time have you guys spent as writers thinking about the layout of the ship and the look of the ship that is their ship? 'Cause I
Not that
feel
much
like-
because we did that yesterday.
Well,
Okay, because I feel like
I
that's such an
wouldn't-
important
I
set
wouldn't
piece for a
say
pirate
that.
is their ship.
Ori, I actually wouldn't say that because
really?
all the way back in 2020, when we were talking about
It's a long
originally
time to
having that
remember.
tamarin character or the
Mm-hmm.
monkey character, we were talking about how the ship would need to be modified for these callers to get around and to
Mm-hmm.
move around.
Yeah.
So theoretically, technically, this has been
We have
a point of
discussed it,
discussion since 2020, but it's never been concrete.
at this
Mhm.
point in time, the main set piece has been an island and a tree house. So that has been more discussed and talked about layout wise than the ship. However,
Is this going to be their ship right now that you're drawing?
yeah, but it more matters what the zoom in looks like, because there's no way I'm getting the detail that we would talk about
Yeah.
at this point. Because most of the details we're talking about are kind of like internal as well, kind of
Yeah.
the
And are
outside
those-
of the ship.
Are those speed arrows?
They're animation notes for myself, because right now I'm like blocking in from Mars's script of what Mars wrote to the song that I picked and edited.
So what you're saying is they are speed arrows.
In a way, yes, they're
In a
movement
sense.
arrows.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah. So that ship's going pretty fast if it has 3 speed arrows.
It's a speedy boat.
Although that
Speed
middle
arrows.
one's kind of scrawny. It looks like it has eaten enough, so maybe it's not
Yeah,
bad.
it's only medium fast, not super fast.
Yeah.
To bring this all back to talking about information rather than visually showing it, in writing you'd have to write the wind filled the sails and push the boat along, but in animation, you just watch it move.
Mm-hmm.
What a night and day difference.
Night and day difference.
An empty, exactly.
I had to bring
TV.
it full circle somehow.
Always. That's the ticket. That's the side. Well, so Mars, we've sort of talked about like the sort of head benefits that visual art sort of has over fully written stuff. Do you have any sort of like anything as to, or even Sidhu, what could be the strengths that like fully written medium has over visual medium?
That's a very interesting question to pose, especially with the chosen medium that we decided on, because the whole reason that I was more interested in doing a comic than a book was that I wanted to focus on writing dialogue. I was more interested in portraying characters through their dialogue rather than describing their actions constantly, or describing the island, or describing. I just wanted to focus on the communication aspect, because that's what was the most interesting to me. But with that being said, I do think writing does have its advantages. I mean, easiest one to point out is what we said earlier, is that in writing, when something is mentioned, 9 times out of 10 it is mentioned for a reason, and you're going to pay attention to it, because like, why else would the author specifically mention the character feeling a certain way? Why would the author mention that this character's nose scrunched when they heard that sound, or something along those lines? It just kind of clues you into what's going on and you pay attention. Whereas with a visual medium, you don't really have that benefit unless you manipulate the camera in that certain way Ori was describing earlier. I would also say, and this is kind of a con of writing, you could get a little too lost in the details. I think this harkens back to what Ori was saying about DMing as well, is like, if you give something too much detail, I mean, one, you kind of start to lose people's attention, and they might start doing the thing, especially in reading. I know I've done it before reading fan fiction, where you start not really paying attention or absorbing every word. You just start skimming to like, oh, okay, where's the next bit of dialogue? Like, let's move this along, please. I don't need a 4-page description of what the staircase looks like. So it is a balancing act when it comes to written word. When you're describing something, you need to know what information does the audience need, and what's just dressing, what's just fluff, what isn't necessary to the scene or to the plot, and how to cut that down. And it can be difficult sometimes, especially if you're trying to like convey something. Like there's a difference between setting the scene and trying to make sure the audience picks up on specific information. Like setting the scene, you're setting a tone or you're setting an aesthetic. If you start talking about how ornate the furniture is or how frilly the curtains are, like that'll paint a specific scene in your reader's mind. But if you're trying to draw attention to like, oh, the curtain had this very specific flower on it that's the same in the garden, like that's a detail that you'd only need if that flower is going to come into play later. Does that make sense, Ori and
Yeah.
Cinder? Do you have anything to add?
I'm muted. Sorry. No, that
Mhm.
makes
Oh.
sense. No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
It's I mean, I have been writing fan fiction recently, and it's something I've definitely been working to get better at, because one day, you know, maybe I would like to write an actual full-fledged book. And I've been doing, I got a lot of books for Christmas, and I've been doing a lot of reading and just paying attention to what authors decide to prioritize and what details they ignore. Trying to think of example. I did read a very good book recently, and I'm trying to think if there's any good examples I can pull from it that I can use. I'm sure they'll come to me eventually. As of now, they are not, but eventually they will. Maybe I'll even give that book a reread.
I have
For
a
the record, the
question.
book was called Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor. Very
Ooh.
good book. It is definitely trying to be the next Percy Jackson, but it's a pretty good Percy Jackson. And it's kind of its own thing, too. Very entertaining. I read through it in a single day. It was awesome. High
Nice.
recommendation.
My question is for everybody, Cinder, Chat, Mars, everybody. What is your favorite form of media and why? So that could be anything, you know, book, you know, but you could also go as specific as like novel versus light novel, you know, TV show, movie, animated, live action, you know, like comic, all these sort of things, you know, visual novel, game, you know, all these sort of things.
Ooh.
Like
So
plays.
for me, I've definitely been allowing myself to read for fun again. I think most people here know I have been in grad school for the last couple of months, so a lot of my reading was narrowed down or restricted to just a bunch of research articles with a lot of jargon and heavy material. So by the time like I did get a book that I wanted, I just didn't really want to read anything. Pretty much the only thing I've read for the last 3 months was just Archive of Our Own and stuff on there. But with the past holiday and being off from school, I've actually been able to read some of the books that I've been collecting on my shelf. And man, I've kind of forgot how much I enjoyed just getting lost in a book. It was like I didn't even realize I had finished it by the time I did. And I was like, oh man, I just finished this book. Holy crap. I forgot I was capable of doing that. But when it comes to, I know there's this huge debate, especially in the anime community, manga versus anime. I usually choose the anime over the manga because I like hearing the voice actor's interpretation of the dialogue. Like this is always the debate between subs and dubs as well, is that depending on how the actor decides to approach the dialogue or how the translation ends up being, it can totally change the delivery of the scene or the portrayal of the character. And it really makes a difference. And I find that very fascinating. So whenever I hear like, oh, this voice actor is going to be bringing this character to life, I'm always excited because I know if it's a good voice actor, they're going to bring their A game. They're going to bring a very interesting interpretation. And if I do decide to read the manga, I already have a voice that goes along with that character. So
Who's
then,
Tanjiro's voice actor?
Tanjiro's voice actor, off the top of my head, not Natsuke something.
Okay, Tanjiro's voice actor from Demon Slayer. If he's in anything, it's top fucking tier. Like, Jesus Christ.
Literally.
Like, goddamn.
He is voiced
Oh, exactly,
by...
Teapot. You know, that's why it's such a big deal to have, like, the original cast of, like, a Broadway musical or a play or something.
He is voiced by Natsuki Hanai in the sub and Zach Aguilar in the dub.
Yeah.
Oh, both of which are phenomenal voice actors.
Indeed.
Natsuki Hanai has been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. We
I
keep
always
running into him.
I always look forward to his projects.
We
He
literally
brings
keep running
his
into
A-game.
him, and it's just, you know, top tier stuff. Because he was Vanitas, and he was
He was
Apare,
Apare in
and then of
Apare
course
Ranman.
Tanjiro. And then he was someone
Tanjiro.
else too. Didn't we like see him again?
He was Inaho. He was
Yes, he
Inaho
was
in
Inaho.
Al Noah Zero.
Yeah. There you go.
So yes.
But
But there's also another reason, like, I like anime more than manga, is like you see everything animated. Like, your mind doesn't have to fill in the blanks in between panels. Which I know is kind of ironic to say considering we're making a comic.
comics are just easier than animation.
Well,
if I could animate, I would.
I think the difference for me is that as one of the creators, I know what in between those panels look like.
I see.
But along the same vein, ours is not an action comic.
Well,
at least not for the most part. Like, there will be action scenes, but it's not the focus.
So
it's
that-
not
It's very
it's
interesting.
not like I think back to like when I tried to read Attack on Titan and get into the Attack on Titan manga. Sometimes I had difficulty following along because there's just so much going on in a single panel. And don't get me wrong, it's drawn beautifully and looks gorgeous, but it's almost like watching a close-up of Michael Bay's Transformers transform. It just looks so cluttered, you can't really follow what's going on. It's just like, okay, that looks cool, on to the next panel, I guess. I don't know if anyone else has that experience, but I know, Ori, you don't like reading manga in black and white because I think you have the same issue.
Yeah, so my biggest thing against manga specifically is that I really enjoy the color. And I can appreciate the effort that, like, the toning and the screens and the everything that goes into, like, making manga still readable in black and white. And, of course, it's, like, simpler and cheaper and all this sort of stuff to do black and white when you're good at it. However, for whatever, you know, reason, the color of it is very important to me. I love seeing how the tone, you know, how the color can really change and having these sort of, like, different palettes and, like, being able to associate. I love, you know, the sort of Voltron vibe thing, you know, where it's like every character has a color. And so you can have all of this sort of, like, you know, think of like Fairly Odd Parents, right? Like, because Wanda and Cosmo have their two distinct colors, you can have all of this sort of like, oh, they're in the background over there, and oh, they're in the, and like in real life, it could be like, oh, every time you have a pink and green thing, it's like, oh, it's Cosmo and Wanda, right? Like, so you can have this sort of like layered in, you know, like metaphor constantly going, that anytime you put like, you know, in Voltron, right? Anytime you put red and blue together, or, you know, purple in it, it can be like Clance, right? You know, like you can do it, and so it gives this innate layer to it. So color is very important to me that way, and I just appreciate it. Like, you know, as Cinder said, my art is very colorful. You know, it's because of that. But the biggest reason that I prefer animation over comics, because I love comics and I love Western, you know, like Western comics and everything. I have a ton of like graphic novels because they're full color, right? Like I love the full color. I read webtoon, of course, and webcomics. But the biggest thing to me with animation is the camera movement, and that's something that I find myself like having to struggle with the comic, is because it is something that, at least the way that my brain thinks and processes sort of like the written word and scenes that Mars is creating out of the script, is I want the camera to pan and turn and move around. Like I want the characters like to move around, right? Like
So
Milano is
you
a very...
you try to avoid it being static.
Yeah, and the problem with translating that into a comic is one very specific rule, and that's the flip-flop rule, or it's called different things, but it's the idea of that when you're reading a comic, it is very weird and confusing to have characters switch sides of the panels, right? So if like Hotun's always on the left and Milano's always on the right, like you want to keep that consistent, even though technically if I flipped the camera around, Milano would be on the left and Hotun would be on the right. Like that's more confusing to a reader if you don't have that kind of movement to it, right? If you don't have the turn.
I never thought about that before.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, oh, why is this character over here? Like it's a very weird sort of phenomenon, but your brain just can't, like extrapolate. Yeah, exactly. TD pod. But it's the idea of like, I constantly, imagine like Milano's constantly walking around. Milano's constantly moving.
Yeah.
He's to one character, he's to another character. He's moving around.
Doing a little dance in place. He's very active.
The desire to have all of these very large like camera movements is the big jump to me from like a comic to animation, right? Because you can voice a comic, right? Like so it's not the voices, like you can voice this comic, or like if you do a visual novel, right? Like you can voice a visual novel, but there's still stagnant, characters. There's still stagnant, images.
Yeah.
Or relatively stagnant images. Ace Attorney has their little animations, but it's nothing like sweeping or moving or pacing and all this sort of stuff like that. And so that's my biggest reason of why animation is my preferred, because you have that specific camera movement. So it's a reason that the Treasure Planet is amazing. It's because they specifically did that.
Beautiful.
Or like Tarzan, right? And all these sort of things. So it's very, very interesting. But those are my two like big things. Cinder, what is your favorite sort of medium?
I think that it's not the medium that I use the most, but I think my favorite medium is the graphic novel.
Interesting.
I think that there is something really cool that happens with graphic novels, and comics in general, where you, on one hand, have a situation where the reader has control over the pace in the same way that they do with the novel. But if you are using the idea of page turning in how you design the layout, you can still have like shock moments, and you can still control the pacing and the tone quite a bit. And I also think that comic books, in my opinion, better than novels, better than movies, better than anything, maybe other than plays, but they have much less limit than plays. But comic books and graphic novels can handle the surreal really well in a way that I like much more than is generally handled in like movies and stuff. Like some of my favorite comics are the ones that get very trippy and a little bit like psychedelic, where like you'll have a character like there's a great comic book called The Invisibles, and there is a entity in that comic book that is essentially animate time.
Okay.
And that's a really hard thing to convey, but they convey it in the comic book by having the panels kind of twist when it is entering into and moving through a space. So literally, like, the way you interact with the comic book and read it is forced to change when this entity is moving through the space, in a way that you as the reader and the characters in the comic book feel, which is very weird and awesome.
Yeah.
So
I
that's my
can
thought on that.
definitely see that because I've
yeah.
been getting more into Western comics as well. And some of them are so good. There was one with really good camera angles that I was reading. It was called Wind, and it was only book Wind, but man, talk about setting the stage for this whole thing to play out. And it handles the realm of fiction so well. Like that is another reason I will always choose animation over live action, because like, yeah, it's kind of cool that it looks close to real life, and oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had that like in our world? This is as close as we'll get. But it's like in animation, there really are no limits. Like, unless you draw it that way, the uncanny valley does not exist. So you don't have to worry about risking that either.
I also think you can get whimsy very easily in animated, instead of like, it's hard, I think, to have sort of like a whimsical nature, because when you think about like live action things that ended up that could have been whimsical, it's like Alice in Wonderland was specifically dark instead, like I guess the Wizard of Oz kind of, but like they're still kind of weird.
That could have just been because Tim Burton was directing.
Well, yes, it like no, I'm not saying that they tried to make it whimsical and it ended up being dark, but it's more like the idea of like, can you think of something that's like super whimsical that was live action? Like maybe the Wizard of Oz, but it still is kind of weird. Like they still all look kind of weird.
Is the only thing I could really think
but
fits
they
that
still
criteria.
Look kind of wrong.
I would say Mary Poppins probably pulled it off the best.
Yet they still had animation in it. They didn't
do
it
have animation.
Full live action. And that was a big part of it. Like,
and then you kind of had Nanny McPhee follow it up, but I wouldn't call that whimsical. It was definitely more twisted.
Yeah, Nanny McPhee is good, but it's
category.
not. I wouldn't call it whimsical.
And
right, you, Cinder?
I feel like Harry Potter attempted it in the first few books,
nah.
And then as soon as it got dark, they just kind of threw all the whimsy out the window. Like, I think the first movie tries to be whimsical. They try to.
It's still like London, though. I don't know. Like, it's still like, because I think the biggest problem is you can't have, maybe this is just me, but you can't have the bright colors.
Color palette.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I think of the color palette, and it's very muted.
If you make it candy, colors in live action,
Never-ending Story. That
wrong.
Is a good one. TD
it's
Pod.
Still really dark, though.
I don't know, like, it's definitely whimsical, but, like, okay, compare Never-Ending Story to something like
Adventure
Encanto.
Time, Encanto.
Encanto, for me, is pure whimsical. Like, you have those sparkles everywhere.
Literally.
You have images being created out of the green futuristic sand and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Book of Life.
It's
Coco,
so fantastical.
You like, well, you can have it be dark in animation, but there's just like, you don't get the bright colors anymore, because having the bright colors in live action just is weird. It's just wrong. Like even think about it. Like,
I could think that maybe came close was Avatar. Avatar is pretty bright and colorful for a live action.
That one does,
movie.
but it's all like. I don't know, when it's like.
Then it eventually gives way to all the graininess and gray and muted colors once the humans arrive. So, I guess the metaphor worked.
Oh, there you go. Johnum's right. The Muppets.
You are right, John.
The Muppets. That's about it, though. But it's just one of those things that's definitely like a lot less common. You have to work on it a lot harder, and it's a lot easier to fall into that uncanny valley. Like, you could say that like the Dark Crystal was, should have some kind of whimsy to it, but it's really creepy looking. It's good, like in a wild way. Mr. Rogers, that's a good one too. That's a good one too. And Blue's Clues. Okay, you see, Blue's Clues. Blue's Clues did a wild thing where they put, or that was like one of the early ones where they put the dude with all the animated, right? But it's still animated, right? He lives in an animated house. Like he lives in a drawn house.
Roger Rabbit for kids.
Yeah.
And educational.
Exactly. Again, the puppets in the labyrinth are good. There's no doubt about that. But I wouldn't call it like whimsy. I don't know. They're weird. They're creepy. It's a vibe, but it's not the whimsy vibe, So there's there's definitely things, but none of them are the same that you can get with like Encanto and Book of Life and Coco and all the like very like even like Tangled, right? Like you get in all of that sort of stuff. There's just this extra layer, and that's why it irks me a lot. My least favorite thing in the world, by a long shot, is taking an originally animated movie and making it live action.
So you haven't liked the last few years of Disney, have you?
No, they upset me to no end.
Either.
They upset me to no end because they have their moments. I'm not trying to say that they are bad in of themselves, but it's very difficult. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Like I enjoyed Beauty and the Beast. That was fine. I really love the song Evermore. I wish that was in the animated. That would have been awesome. But the one that irks me the most is The Lion King, and Jungle Book. I don't like Jungle Book either. But Jungle
Book was tolerable if just for Christopher Walken singing Ooby Doo. Okay, that was gold. You cannot argue that wasn't gold.
It just upsets me in the sense that it's like the reason those worked are because they are animated originally, right? They're not trying to be realistic.
Look at the example you took with The Lion King. Like, Lion King is your most hated, I'm assuming?
Oh, yeah. Don't get me.
Okay. So, Lion King went incredibly realistic. I think I remember seeing an interview where the director said, I want it to feel like you're watching a nature documentary.
And that is bad.
But there is something you give up when you stick to realism. You lose the expression. You lose the emotion. The characters cannot react in the way a character would react because they're too busy reacting like a realistic animal, which
there was
let's face it, is pretty blank-faced.
There was a very good
time.
One of the best reviews I saw about The Lion King said one of my favorite lines that I say about like describing it, and it was about the idea that when you watch any movie, any single piece of like visual media, you should be able to get the general idea of what is going on without any words. You should be able to watch any, and this counts for live action, this is animated, this is, in a comic, this is everything, that you should be able to understand. Exactly. You should, anything besides like fully written, or verbal words, like, like a book or like, like verbal storytelling, anything that has visual media, you should be able to understand the general idea of what's going on, of what's happening without any words at all. And The Lion King live action took that and threw it out the window and said, we don't give a shit. That doesn't matter, because if you do watch the live action Lion King without any words, nothing happens.
You have no idea what happens.
There is nothing going on.
You're basically watching Nat Geo. That's it.
The live action
characters
is
have
nervous.
no expression, no emotion, and
It's
when
nothing.
their mouths move to talk,
Barely.
it doesn't look right.
It's nothing.
Because they have focused on making these characters look realistic as possible. They cannot and should not talk in the environment they've created.
And that's the biggest like faux pas, right? Like literally, is that because you watch a good live action movie with actors and everything, and like you know what's going on, you can understand what's going on. Like you could, like pick one of the best like live action movies that you know your favorite, and you sit there, you mute it, and you can understand what's happening. Obviously not the whole nuances and everything, but the idea of like, oh, like this is sad and they're having a bad time and he's hurt her or whatever.
They're being contemplative. They're thinking about
Yeah.
something. They're regretting a choice.
And
like you could infer that from expression
that's
alone.
what gets me about the quick and dirty thing of taking a animated thing and making it live action. And I don't think there's many times where everybody is on a consensus that this is like a good thing. You know, can anybody think of one? Because it happens a lot with anime too, and nobody really likes them in the end, if I remember.
No one has liked them. I still have not forgiven Netflix for Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and or Mob Psycho. Like that hurt. Death Note was also very painful.
Yeah.
I haven't even tried Cowboy Bebop because just no.
But there's a reason that they picked animation for this story, right? Or not live action.
Medium to
Exactly.
tell that story.
That'd be like, imagine trying to tell JoJo's Bizarre Adventures in live action. Like, kill me.
Oh,
You don't get
awkward
it.
as hell. You cannot have the over the top reactions because it looks awkward. You imagine a real grown man acting the way Joseph Joestar reacts.
I think I would cry.
It would be cringe.
I would cry.
It's not cringe when it's animated because it's already suspending your disbelief, and there's already this disconnect by it being animated.
You know,
but we
Polnareff already
recognize
sucks.
live action because that is our world. That is the world that we inhabit. So when we see someone acting like a cartoon, it's either going to go really well, like let me think of an example. It's either going to go really well, like Three Stooges, for example, or Roger Rabbit would be the better
Rabbit,
example.
that's a good one. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Roger Rabbit, I think, is an unfair comparison because the man acted like a cartoon in a world full of actual animated cartoons. So that might not be the fairest comparison, to be honest. In terms
Monty
of
Python?
solely live action, all right, let's go with Monty
Maybe.
Python.
That's
They
probably my best.
very much acted like cartoons in that show. So yeah, that worked okay. So it's either gonna go really good or it's gonna be really cringe. There is no in between.
That is a good one, 2D Pod. But see, the whole point of that is like the idea that they're specifically using it, right? Like you can take anything that we say and decide that I want to make that, but good, right? But the problem comes with is when that's not the intent, and then it's bad, right? Like so that's the whole thing. Like take Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Going into the movie. Well, I think this is the best example I got off the top of my head. Going into the movie, it's like, this is horrible because they like took it and they made it gritty, and on top of that, they like changed all the characters and they started at a really weird place in the story. But you know, barring that portion of it,
the Wiki Cliff Notes version of season 1.
Bending wasn't really cool anymore because they just shoved it in the background because they made it realistic instead of making it like kind of gritty. You know, a good example where they tried, right? They tried to give the fire benders sort of like a drawback, right? Every other bender needs to have
fire in the
exactly.
area. Right?
Every other bender needs to have the presence of the thing that they bend, right? And thus it makes sort of airbenders the most powerful by default in that sort of world because it's like, if you're alive, there's air, right?
But now it makes no sense why the airbenders got wiped out and the Fire Nation took over.
But then exactly. So the firebenders, they made it in the live action that the firebenders needed fire to do their thing, and thus it makes firebenders the weakest because fire is the least common natural occurring thing, right? They have to bring it with them. And so while that makes it more realistic, right? It makes it more realistic that, okay, all of them have this sort of drawback. It entirely ruins the idea that they are so freaking powerful that they wipe everybody else out, right? It ruins that fact because all you have to do is get a bunch of waterbenders or even airbenders, because if there's enough air, you can put out fire, and you just douse the fire. What are they gonna do? Huh? What are they gonna do?
Literally nothing.
So it's very much,
That's
ong.
Soka. Oh god.
But it's definitely it's one of those things where they took it and they tried to bring it to that, like, this is live action, we want to make it feel, I guess, quote unquote, grittier, right? In the sense of
I
that
was
it's like
gonna
more
say
realistic.
grounded.
Yeah, grounded. That's a good word.
But
Grounded.
here's the thing. The original was grounded in its characters, in
Yeah.
the development of said characters. Like, sure, not everyone can relate to the plot. I doubt all of us have been frozen in ice for years and had to wake up to an entirely new world that we didn't know how to comprehend.
Mars, speak for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Cinder, I think, does that every
guess
1,000
I
years.
very much am.
I lose
Oh,
track.
well.
I'm a
I'll see you
weird
in 1,000
cycle.
years, Cinder. Remember me fondly.
My cycle is a little off this season,
I
so
see,
I'm
I
not
see.
exactly sure.
It's got to be global warming that's throwing you off.
I think
There
I'm
you
just
go.
going through menopause.
Maybe.
But it's like, that's where the grounded element came from the characters and their personality and how you related to them.
But the other
Because fantastical element was the bending, was the world, was the cultures that they interacted with. That did not need to change because that's not what needed to be grounded.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the biggest thing, right? Is that especially in one of the best animated series, that we have right now is definitely Avatar: The Last Airbender. Having such a fleshed out sort of rules, right? Like quote unquote rules, where it is set up in a very specific way, then to be like take that and be like, nah, we can do it better, is kind of like, really? Really? That's the issue.
It just didn't make any sense. And it saddens me that live action is seen as the final destination.
The adult media.
Exactly. It's seen as, this is the adult version of what you liked when you were younger. We're making it more adult.
That's
We're
where anime
making
fills
it
the gap.
grittier. We're making it.
That's why we got anime.
Because literally, because I can't speak for the poor people who actually make the animation. I certainly hope they're being treated well, but let it be said that their work is not going unappreciated by the millions of fans. At least I hope not. But there's definitely an understanding, at the very least, that animation is a medium, not a genre. Whereas the West still very much treats it like a genre.
I find the
We're
West
slowly making a breakthrough. Like, I see stuff like Vox Machina coming out, and Invincible.
I will say,
It's like, we're pushing the
Amazon,
envelope.
in Amazon Prime Video media, out of all the horrible things about Amazon, the one thing they're getting right is their animated shit right now. Because I'll give them credit where credit is due, and it's that one singular thing. That one singular thing.
Because it's like, but before that, don't get me wrong, South Park is great.
But I will say,
if you like Family Guy, props to you.
Adult
Simpsons,
animated shows
they paved the way.
Is a medium
adult
all on its own at this point, like Western adult animated shows.
In the West, like, they're assumed to be like, oh, they have to talk about adult situations all the time. And they have to include sex, and they have to include shock humor, and they have to include just vulgar antics.
Like, take a look at all, like the ones you listed. They're all very similar.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're saying. Well, to TV.
Can I ask your opinion on something?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I'm designing magic weapons right now, and I'm designing this harp.
Ooh.
And the harp is supposed to be, it's made of like the dark twisting magic of the dark wood forest. And I want the harp to do two things. I want one of the things that the harp does to be a way that you can use it to heighten emotions. So you can like play it and get people angry, or play it and get people sad, or whatever. And then the other thing that I wanted to do is, I'm stuck between two things. One is that a situation where there's essentially a saving throw, or someone falls asleep, like you can use it to do like forced lullabies.
Okay.
Or one that essentially can make you forget things or can pull memories back that you have forgotten, something like that. And I don't want it to be both of those two. I want it to be one of those two. Do you have opinions?
I really like the sleep vibe. That gives me very much dark forest vibes. Like,
Alright,
don't
I'm
go,
gonna go-
don't go to the Fae. They'll put you to sleep and you'll never wake up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
right.
what that
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
Lullaby. All right,
I'm
cool.
feeling that as well, and it feels like it fits in with the folklore as well.
All right, cool. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that. Lady.
lots of sleepy
no problem.
sleepy stories.
It's just like, yes, you'll fall asleep and you'll wake up elsewhere,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
we'll
see,
return.
TD Pod is on the
later.
opposite side there. Look at that.
Well, TD Pod, I'm actually, this is part of my on my Patreon. I'm promoting my Patreon. On my Patreon, I'm
How dare
doing like compendiums of homebrew. So like like a bunch of things that go together. So I'm doing the Dark Woods right now, which is like the nutshell of the Dark Woods is like a forest of corrupt ancient magic and eternal darkness, or like eternal night. That's the Dark Woods. So it's like Fae, but like a little bit spooky and a little bit evil. So I'm making monsters for it, magic items for it. So that will likely, if it's not going to make it into the Darkwood harp, it'll probably make it into another Darkwood magic item.
Good vibes.
Yeah, and then after I do Darkwood, I don't know what the next one will be, but I want to make sure we have at least a handful more subclasses. I finished the Behind Me Barbarian. I feel like
Yeah,
it's
the
pretty
high behind.
good. The Hide Behind Barbarian, I think, came out pretty nice.
Nice. You reminded me something now I forgot.
yeah,
Oh,
and
Memory Weaver would be a cool like NPC, I think.
That's a
the
good phrase.
Memory
Yeah.
Weaver, you know, like that, like a spider person. Now
Yeah,
all
yeah.
I'm thinking about is like Corey Mars, but you know.
Well, that actually fits into an idea that I already was playing with that I might just take, which
Exactly,
was the idea of spiders that have webs that do illusion magic as opposed to like real life sticky.
Oh, and you call them via song. That could
Call
be
them
fun.
via. Listen, I'll call them. Just call them anything. Just don't call them late for dinner.
Oh.
You know what I
They
mean?
probably don't appreciate that.
I can't imagine they do. They'd be mad if they did.
I was gonna say something. I keep losing my train of thought.
Back train.
Oh, I was gonna say that now that all Christmas presents are done, the next thing Mars is drawing everybody's characters. Yay!
Woo!
We're
Aw.
going. Yeah. It's a process, but we get there.
I actually had
You are
written
supposed to.
Alar an obituary. I was wondering if anyone else would like obituaries of their characters from the Watery Grave.
I won't say no. I won't say no. You could read them on stream too.
I mean, all you would need to do is send me like, what do you think are the most important details? What did your character hope to achieve? Why did they set out on this journey? What obstacles did they come across? And then how were they cut down in their prime?
TD Pod,
Ooh.
did you intentionally make this vibe like matchmaker make me a match, or not? Because all I can think of is weaver, oh weaver, craft me a dream of a place where I have been, out in the woods in the dark all alone, oh craft me a perfect dream. That's all I could think about.
Mark your bingo cards, just always just sang alone.
Oh, I've sung a few times. If you haven't marked it off yet, whew.
This is
Behind.
a reminder.
Because that's all I could think about, TD. I should do that though. I should finish the Watery Grave song because I have the 2 ones before that done. Yay!
Just need a whole album by the end.
Oh, I'll have to send you the Drakenfell one, Mars. I did it. It is.
Ooh.
Dylan liked it. That one was fun.
Nice. Ah, can't wait to hear it. Oh, look at poor little Hotes in there.
He is scared.
All that wind.
Let me see. I
Oh.
don't have the fucking thing open. Oh, it's one of my favorite faces.
Yeah. Oh,
I love a good verklumped face.
Yeah, he's scared, bracing himself. I see
Yeah.
TD. I see TD. Let me think of that.
You see TD?
Yeah. Weaver, oh weaver, craft me a dream of a place where I've been. I know the song.
Well, I think it would be a little slower.
Well, it's come little children,
Weaver, craft me a
dream. There you go.
dream,
Okay,
a
there it is.
dream of a place where I've been.
There you go. I'm like sitting here trying to. I'm like I kind of
I have
can
watched
remember
that
it.
movie too many
It's a
times
good
to
movie.
not have that melody memorized.
See, it's funny. Like I could have sung it with the real lyrics, but trying to put it like into the into the Weaver lyrics was like not happening, and I don't know why.
Your brain is doing double the work. It's remembering
It
the
is.
theme and then it's also trying to fit new lyrics onto old ones.
That's
It's
very
a
true.
task. It requires some mental processes.
It does, TD. I will say it does. But look at the costumes of the witches, right? Color coordinated. They're very bright.
I would also
That's what
say
you need.
that's the movie where the live action people acting like cartoon characters really worked. It
Mhm.
didn't. The main characters didn't really act like cartoon characters, but the witches acted like cartoon characters.
Yeah,
It was
I
just
just
the
that
90s.
scene
They
where
acted
they're
like
walking
90s
down
guys.
There
the
you go.
road
There you go. It's just the 90s.
and then they just scream and run the other direction.
Yeah, I liked Hocus Pocus was great. My favorite part
Oh,
was all
so
my favorite
good.
part in hindsight is such a stereotypical favorite part for a boy.
Mhm.
But my favorite part by far was when the zombie guy cut his
Mhm.
mouth open and like coughed up like a bunch of like leaves
Bugs
and stuff, and then
stuff,
like
Oh,
yeah.
the
and then
cotton.
yelled like I forget what he yelled, but it was something like "buzz off" or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, like-
yeah.
Hag.
Yeah, I loved that. That guy was my favorite part. He was
My-
there for the boys, and
He
that
was.
he was there for the boys, straight up.
My favorite has got to be when Mary has to ride the vacuum.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That
She
is
just
great.
gives this questioning look and she's like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. And then the graveyard where Billy tells Winifred, go to hell, and she's like, oh, I've been there, thank you. I found it quite lovely.
Very good, very good.
Uh,
I think it also works
so
whimsy
underrated.
wise because, you know, the witches are like not from our time, right? Like they're not
Yeah.
supposed to be normal
We
either way.
always think that like they were from colonial times. The movie explicitly shows this. And when they like enter modern era, or what is modern like at the time of the movie, they don't drop their colonial mannerisms. Like they're still saying thee, thy. They're
Mhm.
still I mean you could argue it's a fish out of water story, because like the scene where they don't know what a road is, they don't know what firemen are, they don't know what a bus is. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of a backwards fish out of water story if you think about it.
No, I would say very much it is. You know, I wouldn't even question. I would say very, very much they play into that a lot. Getting on the bus and although, you know, like with the bus and everything, and you know, I definitely think.
I would say the only time they go into that modern realm is when they start singing the song. But they're doing that to place a spell on the
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Like they're literally cursing them during that song, and they were shown to sing in the opening scene as well.
Mhm.
To
Well, they
curse.
all sing. They're singing a
So,
lot, a good amount.
it's like it's well established.
love
It's not like
singing.
they're singing a pop song
Exactly.
out of nowhere.
No, it
Yeah.
would be weird. It would be a little bit different if they like popped out and they started going, come a chameleon.
It would be weird.
Yeah, that would just
Come and
awkward.
go.
Please tell me that did not happen in the sequel. I still
didn't
have
know
not
it
I
watched.
didn't see the sequel, but I
didn't
would
see
be.
the
I
sequel.
would bet without seeing the sequel, with just through knowing, because I have faith in terror. I do bet that there is a song that isn't that song, that is
Well, because
bad.
they have to make a callback to the original to tug at your nostalgia strings.
Yeah, but I bet it's not as good as that song. Is what I'm saying. Like,
Oh,
I bet there's like a
nothing will
different
slap as
version of
hard
it,
as
and it's
that.
like they could have probably just done that one, and they didn't. That's my bet. That's my.
That would be my guess as well. I like almost want to check it out out of morbid curiosity, but like my inner me is like, no, why would you do that? That's stupid.
I mean, it
Don't
might,
give
it might be
Don't give
amazing.
the mouse what it wants.
It might be amazing. It might blow your mind. It might be the kind of thing where you're like, my heart can't
could.
handle it.
It's one of those things where it's like that could have been a possibility, but I didn't hear enough like this was incredibly amazing from the people that are like movie
I
buffs in my life to be like
Definitely did not hear enough of that.
it
To
seems
be
like it went
okay, I need to check this out.
it kind of went under the radar in my opinion. There's a lot of hype of like everybody's gonna watch like the Hocus Pocus 2, like there's a lot of that hype that I saw, and then it just was like, and I heard nothing about it. Good,
and
bad, nothing. You know, so
I
it
feel
just
like a
feels like it's
ton of
kind of
movies have
neutral.
been doing that recently.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when new releases were a big thing. And it's like, I almost feel like streaming has kind of killed that. It's like, it just comes and goes, and it's there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no
I'm
wait for it to
finding
come out on DVD anymore.
I'm finding that
So
there's so many
there's
things
attention.
that I'm just not hearing about anymore, which is really weird. Because it's like,
Did
yeah, I don't
anybody
watch.
hear about Disney's Strange World?
It's out. It's out. I haven't heard
out.
anything about it.
I've heard it's pretty decent, and it
I
has
wanna watch
Disney's
it.
56th first gay character.
Oh.
Just so you know.
Yeah. Is he like present though, you know, versus all
He's
the
the
other
main
ones?
character, and
Oh,
apparently
okay.
it's not censored for China.
Damn.
Like, this is not something
Alright.
that could be really edited out.
Mars, you want to watch that?
So I was kind of impressed.
I mean, I got Disney Plus, man. Could be on the
I don't know
list.
if it's made Disney Plus. I heard it was.
It is on Disney Plus.
It was in
I
theaters. Is it?
No, it's I saw it like literally like I went to watch Bluey and it's like right there.
good.
Like
Oh,
do you
good,
want
that
to
was
watch it? You know, like we could.
Oh yeah, I'm down. Because it's like, it looks good too. Like, the world they've created is so colorful. Honestly, you know,
yes.
TD Pod, I might describe that as whimsy. Like,
TD
just from
Pod,
the trailer alone, you got like these
Bluey.
slime, like almost dinosaur looking creatures. They're bright blue, and they're
I
just
mean, have you
wandering
seen
through
the
this
color?
pink landscape that looks like
Yeah.
straight out of the Lorax. They look like the truffula trees. The like Madagascar style truffula
Is it-
trees. It's like it looks amazing.
Is it sad that I was upset that the Grinch 2018 animated Grinch movie did not have the memeable songs that the animated Lorax movie had? Because like if you're
no,
gonna go
not at
ham,
all.
please
It
go
was the
ham.
It was the same animation studio.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't see why they wouldn't
I'm
do
so
the song.
sad. They didn't even they like barely did He's a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. Like just barely at the
God.
beginning in like some sort of like
I did not
modern rap
appreciate the
thing.
Grinch rap.
Oh,
I did
no.
not appreciate the Grinch
There was a
rap.
Grinch rap.
It was so at
Ugh.
the very beginning of the movie, literally I think with the sole intention of like, we gotta put the song in here somewhere, you know, vibes that like someone did a modern rap of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, and they put like 30 seconds of it at the beginning of the movie, and that was it. Like nothing, like that was it. And then they never sang again except for Ahu Dore, and it's like, you're gonna take the Lorax, which has no singing, and you're gonna put what, like
All these
5
songs.
songs in that movie? Like you have Thneedville, you have How Bad Can I Be, you have
Let It Grow.
Let It Grow. Okay, maybe only 3. Still.
I think that's it.
Okay. I thought
Maybe.
there was one more, but
I mean,
let's
there's
say-
Everybody Needs a Need.
yeah, but that's with Thneedville, is it not?
No, that's
Oh,
the
no,
one
no, you're
where
right,
they're
that's
coming
later.
for the one player and saying
You're
like,
right,
"Oh,
you're
this is a great product."
You're right. So 4
We
songs.
love it now.
I
You're
was
not
close.
a loser.
4 songs. Everybody needs a theme. You're right. 4 songs. Okay, at very, very least. I feel like there's one more, but maybe that's it. And then the Grinch has literally Ahu Dore, and that's it. That is it. I'm so sad.
To be fair, like the Grinch, the original cartoon, the one made, I believe, in the 70s that has Tony the Tiger singing "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" and
Mhm.
Boris Karloff voicing the
Mhm.
Grinch
Mm-hmm.
is a very musical special. Like, they open
But they,
with a totally original song, like "Trim Up the Tree with Wuzzle Wuffs" and
yeah,
whatever else. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
remember the words.
mm-hmm. I know. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But it's very catchy, and it is a toe tapper. So
It's
for
just
them
like-
to just leave it out entirely, like, The Grinch is an incredibly musical movie.
Yeah, and they took the Lorax, where the original Lorax movie has.
Very depressing songs.
I
to be
think it
fair.
has. Yeah, it does have songs. It has like it's Gunk It Up where they're like going to the thing down. Like it has very depressing stuff, but it has songs too. So like you took that and you made, honestly, again, the Lorax and like the newest Lorax animated movie is definitely Hello Oscar is definitely
Welcome, Oscar.
not amazing, but it is like a vibe, right? It is like a I want to have a fever trip. I want to have just a funny, goofy
It's a
time.
time capsule.
Yeah, it's a time. The Grinch.
Like, it is a time capsule of music that was popular on the radio. It's a time capsule of
But it's
character archetypes that were popular as
it
well.
took the goof up to like 200.
Oh,
Okay,
it
the
cranked it up.
memes, the freaking just hilarity,
The
the
people writing those songs were having fun.
Stuck in
I
your
have
head.
no doubt that those
And I
people
gotta
were
tell you,
having fun writing those songs.
if one of you in here thinks that How Bad Can I Be is a bad song, we can't be friends anymore. And so
Oh no, it slaps.
to take that and then literally have like okay, we're gonna do the Grinch now, and then have no singing except for Ahudore. It's like, are you joking? Are you messing with me? Like, honestly, story-wise, I enjoyed the story that they added to the Grinch much better than the story that they added to the Lorax by a lot. A lot. And they didn't have the one cest issue, so we're good there. But
I'm sorry, the what?
yeah, you don't know about one cest, but to
What is
have
one cest?
no meme songs. Okay, it's
Yeah, I'm
essentially in the newest what is it? 2016 was it animated? Something
Oh
like
God,
that.
why are you making me feel old? Lord?
Okay, I don't know. In what I'm gonna say, the 2020s, the 2010s animated Lorax movie, they have the Onceler, and the Onceler is very classic, like animated, like like good looking, kind of nerdy, but he has like this thank you, hipster moment, right? He plays the guitar, like everybody's gonna be like,
He's got
Like
the
him.
tight pants, the
However,
thread, comb over.
there is nobody in that movie that you can ship him with. Nobody. There's
no.
nobody. Okay, because and that's what the internet does. The internet needs to ship people, right? Because who exists while the Onceler exists? His family, the Lorax,
No.
the animals.
No.
That is it.
No.
That is it. There's nobody else. So what did the internet do? The internet realized that there's before How Bad Can I Be Onceler, and then there's CEO How Bad Can I Possibly Be Onceler, and they went, so we'll ship them together.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was what the internet did, and that was like a whole thing, and that's like that itself, talking about one cest is itself a time capsule of the internet, because it itself is this sort of idea
remember there was
of you
more
will be
shipping
shipped.
for the Onceler.
Oh yeah,
I
no.
did not know one cest was a thing.
And then there were
I do
like
remember
Onceler, like AUOCs, and they went to like Onceler camp, and it's like this whole thing
What?
is because this was the character, right? Like, forget Max or whatever his name is. He's a child, like don't be weird. The Lorax, he's like a creature, and then his family. So it's like there's nobody else. There's nobody. And
Nope.
everybody loved this man because he was
Everyone's
a
like,
vibe. He's
Pretty,
a
he
vibe.
must be shipped.
So he has to, like, that's what the internet does, and that's where they got to, and that was
I
like a
guess
time
Just
capsule.
be grateful that the internet didn't pair him with the old man version of himself.
Oh no. The
I
internet's
spoke too
the
soon,
internet's
didn't
not about that. They did. There was a little bit of what, Max's grandmother. There was like an assumption that she would have been young and around at the time the Onceler was young and around, so they would ship like them together, but that did not take off as much as
Oh my.
Onecess did.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was more like TD. It was more like TD. Like none of those people had any characterization, right? All the Thneed people were just faces that got sold a Thneed and sang, and then went away, right? The only characters were his family, him, and the Lorax, right? And so
And you know, if you're gonna have a ship, like you gotta have another person with a personality to bounce off of.
Yeah. And so that's what they did. And you know, just, honestly, not one of the worst things that happen on the internet, in my opinion. But you know, maybe that's just me.
all they needed to do was just wait a couple years for the Grinch to come out. Then they could have the Grinch with the Onceler. You know, the Onceler hated by his family, could never live up to their expectations, and the Grinch, who never got to celebrate Christmas and always wanted to join in the fun but never could.
I will
Match
admit
made in heaven.
that I did have multiple moments of concern during the Grinch where I was very worried that the story was going to try and have him and what's her name? The little girl. What's the little girl's name?
Cindy Lou Who?
Cindy Lou Who's mother.
What?
That was my concern.
What?
I was very concerned because there was a lot of moments of like her being nice and then like him, and I was just like very concerned that like just like it had to have a ship or something, because they did that with the Lorax, right?
No!
Like it had to have a romance with it, with Max or whatever his name was, you know, and the girl. Ted. That was what it was. Ted.
Yeah, but at least Ted was like, okay, yes, there was a boy in the original Lorax, but let's face it, like, the boy in the original Lorax, he was an audience insert. He had no personality. He was just there to receive the Onceler's lesson, was the audience.
Yeah,
Here
exactly.
in a movie, you need a character with personality. You can't go an hour and 45 minutes with just an audience self-insert. That's how you end up with Twilight. And we don't do Twilight.
Yeah,
don't
it does,
be like
TD.
Twilight.
It does. Or well, the TD, it also does, though technically it can and does take into account like ace people can still want like a romance, right? You know, like God, do I ship these two ace characters? But like I just want them to go cuddle and watch movies together. Like, you know, come on.
I mean, one of the fascinating things I found that's been a bit of an uprise amongst fan fiction is a lot of people are writing about
That's true, TD.
a character being ace and talking to their partner about it and having like realistic discussions about like, okay, what boundaries should we have if I do something you don't like here's our safe word. I'm like, wow, I think people either really need an outlet or just like need to get something off their chest.
Yeah, there's definitely not a lot of arrow people in media these days.
But hey, I'm reading them, so what does that say about me?
Well, it's very funny because I can't tell if it's like my like media choices have just become curated to the point that when characters end up being like ace, it's like, oh, cool, and so it's like everybody's ace all the time now, and it's just like, or that's just like me existing in spaces. You know, like I can't
it's
tell,
like,
because
how
it
much
feels
am I
like
projecting?
No, it's not even that. Like Cast Off, right? Also webcomic, read it, everybody read it.
I will never read it.
No, I think literally 3 of the 5 main characters are ace, and it was just like,
yeah.
Frankie,
Ace.
Frankie, God, why can't I remember any of their names? Frankie, Ariana, and what's the main character?
Crap.
Just
I don't remember.
Hogarth.
No, it starts with a V, I think.
Definitely not
Vector.
Hogarth.
Vector.
Venzel.
Vector. They're
Vector, right.
Yeah. They're all ace, and so it was just like, you know, and it's just like not in the story at all, right? It is
Just
literally
like
just
the
like Pride Month. They all got like flags and stuff, and it was just like, oh, you know, bye. Vibe. I'm here for this. I'm here for this. One of the characters
I was
is
like,
Arrow Ace though, TD Pod, and you know what? He's also a vibe. So like, that's all I'm gonna say.
we love representation.
He's a tired Arrow Ace, and you know, just like,
such a mood.
It is though. It is though. Alrighty. Yeah.
Well, that has gone all over the place.
Dappenhive the second, thank you. Yes, Pamplemousse, Papoose, as you called. Yeah, Jamie, if you haven't read the webcomic Cast Off, you should, because it's really good, and like 90% of the cast is Arrow, comma Ace, comma both. Yeah, exactly, spelled just like that. It's a comic.
It's not on Webtoon.
It is on Webtoon. It is on Webtoon.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading it on her personal website.
Well, it's better there and it's updated more there, but it is on Webtoon. Yeah, it's called Cast Off. It's by The Starfish Face. It has its own website, but it's also on Webtoon. It's very, very good. Very vibes. She, as an artist, is a big inspiration for me, too, in the comics, so nice. Yes. Also, if you want,
maybe one day we'll talk about our inspirations.
If you don't read read from Overly Sarcastic Productions comic Aurora as well, also do that, because goddamn, it's good shit. It's good shit. Aaron, top tier. Kendall, top tier. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming to it to talk. I'm like, yeah, it's really good.
Are we doing TED Talks now?
We're doing TED Talks. Yeah, you wanna pitch something, Cinder? What's a piece of media that you just vibe with?
Oh, my TED Talk was not going to be about a specific piece of media.
Go ahead.
General. It was going to be a general issue that I think more light needs to be shined on.
Then go ahead.
There is far too much vampire media when in comparison to the amount of werewolf media there is.
Yes.
Especially of good quality.
Yes.
I will agree. As much as I like the case study of Vanitas, I need some more werewolf shit in
There
my life.
there are basically 3 good werewolf movies, and everything else is garbage. And there's at least 5 good vampire movies.
I can't think of a good werewolf show, and it makes me sad.
There's no good werewolf shows. Here's the good werewolf movies. The best werewolf movie is called American Werewolf in London. It was made in the 80s. It has the best on-screen transformation ever, even with modern graphics. It's amazing. It's a very good movie.
That's a classic.
I think the second best werewolf movie of all time is called Ginger Snaps.
Oh.
Which is about these 2 teenage. It's kind of about women. It's kind of about girls becoming women and like figuring out their like sexual identity, but it's also about them turning into werewolves. It's very good. If you haven't seen Ginger Snaps, check it out. It's not like gonna change your life, but it's a good werewolf movie. Those are like the 2 good werewolf movies. And then Werewolf by Night, the new Marvel movie, the Marvel show was actually pretty good. So that I'll put that one on. The original Wolfman's okay if you don't mind a slow pace. But that's pretty much it. Everything else is fucking garbage.
Yeah, I attempted. There was like a Netflix original anime that was like supposed to be kind of about werewolves, and he was like kind of a werewolf, but after watching like probably like 3/4 of the show, there was not really any actual like werewolf vibes, and it was just like, yeah, this is not what I want.
You're not a
What
werewolf.
anime was that?
You're just a fucking
called,
guy.
Like, God, okay, you're gonna make me look it up. It's bad, Mars. Like, don't.
Really? How bad?
It's just boring. Anime. Sirius the Jaeger.
Oh.
Boring as hell. No real werewolf
I know the one you're
stuff
talking
going
about.
I'm looking at 10 best werewolf anime you must see now. So,
Why
no.
do I need to see it now if it's bad?
No, no, no,
want
no, 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 no.
good.
I when I looked at this, it told me 10 best werewolf anime you should see. You must see now.
Oh, I
So-
heard 10 bad
Oh
werewolf
no, no,
fan.
no. Best anime. However, they're putting Sirius the Jaeger at the top, and it has a 5.56 out of 10. It's not good. It's not good.
But yeah.
It's not good.
People will do anything to get their werewolf fix. They'll watch anything.
I need more-
because
I need
exactly what
more
Cinder
werewolves.
said.
Yeah.
Exactly what Cinder said.
There's not enough friggin' werewolves.
There really aren't.
It makes me sad.
Okay. We might
Maybe
have to put.
one day.
Ooh.
Mars, are you gonna make me a werewolf thing one day?
Maybe I can. I could certainly try writing one. I remember. So I had a friend a long time ago. This was back when I think I was still in middle school, high school. And she had recommended me this book about a werewolf and how this girl finds a werewolf in the woods, and she like nurses it back to health and everything. And you know, my naive mind, who didn't know what I was yet, was like, okay, this sounds interesting, I'll read it. Most of the book is just her inviting this wolf into her bed and like letting him sleep in her bed, and then in the morning he's like a full dude, and I'm like, what's going on here? Where's all the cool werewolf shit?
Yeah, that sounds like more
And it
like
was
a-
not Twilight.
That sounds like a
Surprise.
werewolf book more than a werewolf book. If you know
I
what mean.
didn't know what it was. I was so bored while reading it, and I was just like, okay, he's sleeping in the bed sixth time, and now they're sleeping together like a couple. What am I reading? Where are the cool werewolf transformations?
This is so sad. I like
Not even going full werewolf. He's just going wolf.
Yeah,
I like
this is the
look
problem
up
that we live with.
the werewolf. Like I literally went and was like, okay, let's look up best werewolf anime, and they're all not really werewolf anime. They're all like, there's a werewolf character as like a supporting cast member in this anime, and it's like,
No.
this is
Okay.
not what I want.
I will say Wolf Children may be the closest.
That's like it.
Why
but
is
also,
To Your
like, not
Eternity on
really.
here? That he was a white wolf. That's not a werewolf, guys.
Well, that's
Okay,
the
if you guys watch To Your Eternity, it is amazing. Absolutely my favorite thing that is out right now. There is a season 2. I am adoring it. I am having a great time. It will rip your heart out, stomp on it, and spit on it, and then put it back together again. But it doesn't have a freaking werewolf in it. I don't know what these people, like what show these people watch, but it wasn't the same show I watched.
Let's
The
beat
main
'em up.
character can turn into a wolf, but
It's
it
not
ain't a werewolf.
It's not a werewolf. A werewolf is there's a lot going on. It's a curse. It's
Yeah.
not good. It's
I
a
mean-
it's something that you must come to terms with. It's not a power. It's like a part. It's like it's a part of you awakening that you have to learn how to either deal with or let it consume you. It's fucking badass.
Exactly. Oh man, this one doesn't like my ad blocker.
werewolf RPG. Oh, that's why it's just that's what makes me sad about D&D. Is just like how they treat werewolves, like, and it's just like it's a sad method.
Oh! I know another good werewolf movie. Underworld. Underworld is a good werewolf movie.
Oh, okay.
You guys know Underworld?
Nope.
Nope.
Oh my god, ladies! I first of all, I love you, and you're smarter than me in so many ways. But this is classic. Okay, so it's Romy. So this is a great movie. It was.
Educate us, Cinder.
It's very Matrixy in its vibe, but it doesn't matter. It's still awesome. It's Romeo and Juliet, but werewolves and vampires. And the point, the plot of the story is there's a woman who's an actress who I forget her name, but she's awesome. And she is like one of the in the city where there's like it's like the vampires are all like super aristocratic and stuff, and the werewolves all like live in the sewers and shit. They're like constantly fighting each other, whatever. She's one of the vampires whose job it is to hunt werewolves. And the plot of the movie is that there's this guy who's like really important to the history and lore of both werewolves and vampires, and he basically gets turned into a werewolf and taken into werewolf culture, and then he and her fall in love, and they fight a lot of werewolves and vampires together. But it is also one of those movies, and there's like a million of them. There's like 30 different of them now. There's a lot of them. But they're movies where the werewolves are largely the underdog, and like the ones that were like, they used to be the slaves of the werewolf and like rebelled. So it's very pro werewolf, anti-vampire in a way that I really appreciate.
Hmm.
Underworld. It's really
Nice.
fun. It's a really fun movie. If you like it, there's literally 6 or 7 of them, and some of them are not all of them. Some of them are like pretty good. Most of them are okay, and some of them are really bad. But the first one is solid. And the other thing is the werewolves all have they have almost like a slightly more feline look in it. They don't look
Ah.
like your super traditional
Ooh.
werewolf. They have, if you just look up like
Yeah, I'm
underworld
looking
werewolf.
at it. They have some more
Yeah,
smudged
same
faces.
here.
That's why.
That's
Say that again?
kind of cool.
They have smaller ears and they have a shorter muzzle because that's
Yeah, but it's
so.
it's a fun movie.
Yeah,
It's a really
it's
fun
good.
movie.
That's the thing, Cinder. See, you do the live action stuff to recommend that to us, and we watch the animated stuff to recommend to you, right?
Yeah. We
That's
we gotta
the
help you.
secret.
I'll ship
Oh,
fries with the tide.
wait, is there a movie called Underworld: Rise of the Lycan?
Yeah, that's one of the sequels. There's like a
I know
million sequels.
exactly which movie. Okay, I used to watch Face Off all the time, middle school, high school,
Mm.
and they always had a judge on there that did the makeup effects, and they always mentioned like, and she's worked on Underworld: Rise of the Lycan.
I mean, that movie did
I'm
have
like,
good.
I knew
good
that
makeup.
sounded familiar.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go, indeed. Yep.
These look pretty badass. I'd be willing to check it out.
No, they look good.
I
Mars-
strongly recommend the first one to just see if you like it, and if you like it, go down the road knowing that there's going to be some that are really bad. On that road.
Yeah, that's life, isn't it?
Yes, sometimes it's the price you pay.
But Mars, I was just thinking, I was like, okay, we gotta have more werewolf and non-vampire related media, because everything that I saw had a werewolf in it was like, it's primarily vampires, but there's one werewolf in it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Fair to the werewolf.
Third comic idea. It's a werewolf comic, huh? Huh?
Oh, we
15
have
years from
to.
now? Huh? All
We
right.
absolutely have to.
It's on the list. That'll be the
It
third
could-
one.
and it could
I
just
think
be
it
called
goes
It's a
without
Werewolf
saying
Comic.
At this point, we are bringing to life the stuff we want to see
Exactly.
in our
You
media.
call it It's a Werewolf Comic, and then you have the characters in the world, in the story, be thinking that they're in a vampire situation, and everybody assume things are vampires, but it's actually werewolves.
Oh
But
my
everyone
God.
I was
basically is
thinking
treating it
this.
like it's vampires. 'cause they
Slice
think
of
it's
life,
vampires.
werewolf.
That
Dealing
I'm
with
not
the
about.
everyday troubles of being a werewolf.
Nah.
Most days are probably pretty chill with the werewolf. You just got to get some
He's just a
chains
regular human.
for the month.
Yeah, that time
For
of
the
the
time.
month.
Yeah. Also
No,
depends
no,
on the
no.
type of werewolf you're doing, right? Like, are you the type of werewolf that only changes at the moon, and the rest of the time you're just a normal person? Are you the type of werewolf where you have like heightened senses all the time? Are you the type of person where you can control when you transform? Like, these are all different aesthetics of werewolf. One of the things that's really fun in the old werewolf myth, which does not come up in new media, is the idea that the werewolf, like, you as a person are mostly just a person, but like you sort of become a essentially like a what's the word, like a fetish doll, like a bad luck charm, where like things bad just don't happen to you but happen around you. And I think that that's like a fun aspect of it if you're going more into the curse side, where it's like there might be a car accident in front of you more likely, or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But the other thing is that the way that the werewolf hunts in some lore is not really random. It's like based on you as a person or what happens in your life. And you in your human form, when you meet people, if you see a pentagram on the palm of their hand, it means that they are someone that your werewolf is interested in hunting. So it creates this dynamic of like you might encounter the people that you might kill, and they might be people that like matter to you.
Ah.
Oh, see that's a very interesting premise there.
That's basically the plot of the original Wolfman. Is the guy gets bitten by a werewolf, and he starts werewolfing, and then he sees the
That's a good
pentagram
word.
in like the palm of the hand of a lady he likes, and he's like, oh boy,
no.
that's gonna be bad.
Best verb though, Cinder.
Ah.
Werewolfing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Best verb.
Listen, I'm
The
not
art
here to
of
do
being a
much.
werewolf.
If I can be impressive with a verb, I've done my job.
Yeah, we'll definitely think of something. It's definitely on the comic idea list.
You know what
Oh,
would
No
be
doubt.
fun?
absolutely.
You know what would be fun? It would be fun to run a TTRPG or whether it was D&D or something else where you all had classes. So it would be like I'm a wizard, I'm a paladin, I'm a cleric. But the gimmick of it was that everyone was werewolves. Um
Mm.
and instead of it being like you are all shifters, you would
Mhm.
still pick whatever you want it to be, but you would have separate game mechanics that you would just give the players for being in werewolf form, almost akin to like starting a campaign and being like everyone gets an extra feat for fun, but to have it so like you would have like it would be like it would almost be like you could either everyone could be wolves or everyone could like pick what were animal they were, and like as a group you could like homebrew how your character, what changed when they shifted, or the positive or negative rules of shifting. So you'd still have like a varied team of players, but it'd be like the werefolk show. That would be fucking cool.
Well,
I
that
like
would
that
be
idea.
that's definitely something on my sort of like homebrew list, right? Is the idea of making like definitely much more sort of in-depth but fun like were related rules, right? For when you become were creatures or something.
Werefolk.
Yeah, because my biggest gripe is the fact that when that one, it is just full moon stuff, right? It is just full moon stuff. And two, that your character sheet essentially gets taken away while you do that. And the only reason that I don't like that is solely because of like I don't find that to be fun being at the table, right?
I think that D&D, well, I think the mechanics that are currently in place for D&D largely go in with the assumption that your character does not want to be changed into a werewolf, and that it is a bad thing.
And that's not what I want.
So it's like fundamentally different than what you're
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to do.
And so
Yeah, because you want it to be fun.
Dylan and I made those few like werewolf related like homebrew items during July Lycanthropy, right? And one of them is the cloak that sort of gives you these powers and stuff, but the best part is that it has a curse where it gives you that sort of vibe of like you're forced to do certain things and act a certain way, but while still being your character, right? Like while still playing your character, so you do have the ability to sort of like strategically get around it or something, or like work a certain way, but it's like no, it will attack your comrades, but it's in a way where you're still playing your character. You're not just like handing it over to the DM, so you would want to change and use this despite the curse. And I think that's where I would love to go with like a whole sort of like I think the idea would be like sort of build your wear vibe, right? You get a bunch of like drawbacks and benefits, but they all have like sort of some point system, so everybody can be different and everybody can be whatever animal they want to be based on what traits and stuff they get from being whatever certain thing, and that would probably be the idea.
All right, let me ask you guys a question that's unrelated for a second. This is a balanced question.
Yeah.
So here's this. I've been working on this item. Here's what I think it does. I think when you're playing it, you get a +2 bonus to your performance check if you're playing it. It has, I think I'm going to go with 4 charges or 5 charges. I'm not sure yet. That's one of my questions. You can spend 1 charge to play it in such a way that it evokes emotions in creatures. And I'm going to make reference to the spell Calm Emotions, but the idea being it can essentially get creatures to become hostile or not hostile. It wouldn't like charm them, but it would kind of make them docile or more aggressive.
Okay.
And it's not, and that would be more of like an area effect saving throw situation. And then the other feature that it would be a single target saving throw situation that it would just put someone to sleep, and that would cost like 3 charges, I think. So the idea, you could do the emotion plucking thing a handful of times per day or once or twice, and the lullaby thing you could most likely do once a day.
Yeah, I like that.
Do you think that sounds cool? And do you think that's rare or very rare?
Ooh.
I'm thinking rare, right,
Yeah.
Ori?
I don't know.
What
It has
level?
3
I think it's
separate
dependent
features.
on the level, though,
How
right?
so? How does is the sleep? Does that sort of work like the sleep spell once you're put to sleep? Are you just like unconscious? Like
No,
how
it's
is
going to
that
be more like the spell Eye Bite, where if you fail it, you become asleep, and you can be woken up just by being woken up, but it would essentially make you incapacitated on a failed save.
And what
It wouldn't be as long lasting as the spell eye bite, but it
Mhm.
would essentially be if they fail, they just fall asleep. I think that's a cool. I like that. I feel like that's good, but that's also very strong.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Eyebite is 6th level to do that.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that it's
I'm thinking
probably
very rare.
very rare.
Yeah, but then you
I
can
also
make the
think
DC
that I'm
pretty
gonna make it
nice.
so I'm gonna make it so creatures that I think that these effects aren't gonna work at all on creatures that are immune to charm or frighten, and I'm gonna phrase it so that if they're resistant to charm or frighten, they have advantage on these saves.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
So that it's like, it works better on like, ordinary creatures as opposed to like
Mhm.
magical creatures.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not just
Um,
OP on everyone.
and I think that is the item. And then the
But yeah.
charges will recharge like 1d4 plus 1 daily at dawn, and that'll be it.
Alrighty. And with
The
that,
Darkwood
Like
Harp.
you got it all figured out.
I think we will wrap up. Thanks everybody who's still here, still chilling. Always nice to have you, of course, Cinder. But
You're my favorite
hopefully-
women on the internet.
Oh, glad to hear it. That means a lot. That means a lot.
That means
Because
so
I
much.
know the other women you interact with on the internet are pretty cool.
Listen,
So you know,
there's some cool women I
It means a
interact with,
lot.
but you guys are my favorite to hang
Yeah,
out with.
I appreciate it. It really means a lot. All right, guys. We'll be playing Ace Attorney tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, but we will start with Ace Attorney Smasher Pass, which will be wild because I think Dylan will have wildly
gonna
different
be a
answers
time.
than Mars and
Oh,
I.
he most definitely will.
Where I think Mars and I
As
will have
soon as-
pretty similar answers.
I don't know about that.
Really? All right. We will see then. This will be a wild
We'll
ride.
see.
And of course,
There's
we'd
no
love
way to predict this.
to have. I already know my answers because I made the PowerPoint, right? And I know my reasoning. I will
Cheater.
say, I had to make a PowerPoint, Mars. What did you want me to do?
Do
but-
it blindfolded.
Oh God, that would not work. But yeah, so I hope to
No,
catch
it
you all
would
then.
not.
You can always want your answers in the chat as well if you want to play along. And
Yes.
we'll see you then.
This is a play along at home game, so come on by.
All right.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, it's Google Slides. Is that better, Jamie? Is that better? It's Google Slides. It's very well done, if I do say so myself. All right.
Oh, she did a phenomenal job.
Good night, everyone.
Later, all.